Welcome to ECW on FX episode 13. In the week where Raven left the company following the expiration of his 9-month contract, he returned at Heatwave 2006, but it just didn't work out between the sides. This run just a complete disaster, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up back in TNA sometime soon, because obviously he had more success there than he did in this run. He's been sparsely used since Guilty as Charged, I think only one time, and he wasn't even on screen. But we now have to focus on this one night only show that we've got coming up and the continuing build to that show. I think this is going to be a good rated episode because we've got a very strong main event. So let's get into it and see how it goes. The episode begins with a video package looking back at the events of last week's show, where Rhino defeated Xavier to retain the television championship in the main event. Following the match, Loki confronted the dual champion and was nearly taken out by a steel chair shot to the back of the skull by Jerry Lynn, who had done the same to Rob Van Dam the previous week. He'd taken RVD out. Unlike RVD, Loki was aware of these tactics and avoided them, showing some ESP type stuff, and took down Jerry Lynn quickly in impressive fashion in a way that must have opened Rhino's eyes to just how good this man is. He then stood nose to nose with the world champion, who he may well be in line to challenge at one night only. Loki has been built up throughout the course of the last 6 weeks. He will have to defeat Jerry Lynn in tonight's main event, however, if he wishes to face Rhino at that event. He's somebody who we're really trying to present as being on the level of Rhino and somebody who can be a realistic challenger to the title. Who knows, he might win that title at one night only, but like I said, first he has to get through Jerry Lynn. We then go into the opening segment of the night, which is a very good segment, and we see CM Punk and Allison Danger both improvising well. Allison Danger, it was a risk to not script her because she hasn't had many promos in the company, but it seems to have paid off there with a very, very good segment. CM Punk calls out Steve Corino, saying that his interview last week was full of mistruths and lies, and he knows it. Steve comes out with his girlfriend Angel Williams and says that everybody knows that Punk can't keep a woman. He goes from woman to woman to woman, and everybody sees through him, even if Allison is too dumb to. CM Punk is a piece of crap, and it's going to be too late when Allison finally realises that. Punk asks Corino what his two ex-wives think of that, and this personal dig riles up and annoys Steve Corino. He tells CM Punk that just like Paul Burchill did at Living Dangerously, it was time that Corino put him in his place. Punk says that's all he's ever wanted from Corino, and he thinks one night only is the perfect night for them to have that match. Corino turns to Angel and asks if she wants to see him beat the crap out of CM Punk. He's putting on some bravado, trying to be this tough guy, and she nods while giving Allison a smug look. The two men then go nose to nose and agree to the match, but Allison grabs the microphone from CM Punk. She suggests that one-on-one isn't enough, those two are going to be at ringside, so why don't they make it a 2-on-2, her and Angel Williams both involved. This is Corino and Angel's invitation to leave, as that couple are clearly not on board with the idea. CM Punk wants the 2-on-2 match, but it seems like Steve Corino and Angel Williams are going to reject that challenge. We then go into a very poor opening match. It had subpar wrestling and little heat. It was a heel v heel match, so I'm not surprised that it's done so badly. But it was just the idea that Kevin Furtick has taken Devon Storm, the original hooded man, as a bit of a sacrificial lamb. He's showing Tommy Dreamer what he's capable of, and in under 3 minutes, having brutalised him throughout the match, Kevin Furtick picks up a very easy victory. Funnily enough, the guy we're trying to push, Kevin Furtick, gets a 38, and Devon Storm, a guy who is pretty much on his way out of the company, gets only one less, so it kind of shows that we're not necessarily pushing the right guys. Kevin Furtick has 10 wins in the company and hasn't got any better, while Devon Storm has lost every match he's been involved in and is at a 37. Kevin Furtick, I mean, for some reason I still see something in him, but he's never shown anything to indicate that he's ever going to be a good part of the roster, so maybe after this we do have to cut our losses, but he will face Tommy Dreamer at that one night only show. And post-match, having made the sacrificial lamb out of the original hooded man, Kevin Furtick is quickly confronted by Tommy Dreamer, who wastes no time in getting into the brawl. He takes Furtick down and lays into the man who attacked him at Living Dangerously. The rivalry between these two men has been pretty simple. It started with a chokeslam and it's been physical since then. It will conclude, we confirm, at one night only, but that doesn't stop Dreamer from taking the fight to him now. Eventually, the brawl ends with Kevin Furtick's girlfriend Shelly Martinez getting involved. We think that Kevin Furtick would be in control, but actually Dreamer seems to be getting the better of the exchange. Kevin is more than ready to continue the fight, but Shelly sees an intensity in the eyes of Tommy Dreamer that she hasn't seen before. Recently we've been trying to put over that Tommy Dreamer has kind of lost it a little bit. He had nothing left to lose, and that basically caused him to snap, and we're seeing a bit more of a psychotic side to Tommy Dreamer, and hopefully it can lead to him winning more matches and getting a bit of a better push, because I do like Tommy Dreamer being a iconic figure of ECW and being a ever-present, but we do need him to improve, and the only way to do that is to probably book him better. We then get an interview in the back with Rhino, and he promotes tonight's main event again, Jerry Lynn versus Low-Ki. He says that Low-Ki's little push to prominence will end tonight, as Jerry Lynn shows him what it's like to be in the ring with a world champion. He suggests that Low-Ki is the next in a long line of lists who they'll build up just for Rhino to knock them down. The best part about this one though is that Low-Ki won't even make it that far because Jerry Lynn will take him down tonight. It's a good promo from Rhino. We're talking about pushes and building people up, but it's not trying to sort of break kayfabe or anything like that. The idea is just that they need challenges for Rhino, but he's knocking them down quicker than ECW can build them. Out of that interview, we go to the office of Paul Heyman with a poor segment really, where Alice in Danger is seen to approach the chief of ECW. She's looking to convince the man in charge to make the match at One Night Only a mixed tag team match, as they suggested earlier, and Paul Heyman admits that he does like the idea. Danger talks about her performance on CyberSlam a few weeks ago. She put in a very good performance, I think, against Trinity, but Heyman is concerned that Angel Williams has been out of the ring for some time and hasn't competed for a while. Allison has the perfect solution for that. She'll face Angel on FX next week. Paul Heyman likes the idea. The first women's match we've had since the new show, and the match is made confirmed for the go home show to that One Night Only event. We then get the second match of the night, which is a pretty good match. Decent wrestling, but unfortunately little heat. Little Guido putting in a 55. Johnny Cashmere with an OK 46. Cashmere is somebody who we're trying to reintroduce, but it is a defeat for him tonight in 6 minutes and 45. Chuck Palumbo with the distraction and a Sicilian drop is enough for Little Guido to pick up the victory. After the match, as Guido and Palumbo celebrate, we cut away to the back where Nigel McGuinness is seen watching them. He's clearly chomping at the bit, he's fired up and he wants to get his hands on the duo. We then see Regal explain this as he confirms the pay-per-view, it's not a pay-per-view, the One Night Only match between the FBI and Nigel McGuinness, who will team with the returning Bryan Danielson. Danielson back from that injury. Regal mentions that Bryan was taken out injured by a clumsy fella who calls himself Balls Mahoney. Nigel McGuinness is keen to teach him a wrestling lesson next week. Regal then looks to Nigel, who is clearly desperate for a fight. Regal chuckles, saying that like Balls, the match will not be pretty next week. And it's another decent segment. We're getting some good promos on tonight's show, and hopefully this main event can deliver. Before the main event, we get footage once again of the injury sustained to Rob Van Dam 2 weeks ago. We're putting it over as a really big moment as Jerry Lynn swung a steel chair to the back of the skull of Rob Van Dam, causing him to bleed on the canvas. Joey Styles and Taz say that Rob Van Dam is still injured, but is fighting to be back to face Jerry Lynn at One Night Only. However, it is looking less likely by the day that he will be cleared to compete at that event. It's not very good. It's only rated on Rob Van Dam, so a little bit disappointing there as we go into a pre-match segment before the main event, which also isn't good. We're probably bringing the crowd down here, but hopefully the main event can bring them back up. During Low-Ki's entrance for the main event, he is jumped from behind by Jerry Lynn. Lynn throws Low-Ki into the guardrail and the steel steps, taking his opponent down with a super kick on the outside. Low-Ki, of course, didn't see it coming during his entrance, and Jerry Lynn enters the ring, ordering the referee to declare him the winner to void the match, but Low-Ki drags himself up and looks even more focused and determined. I think Low-Ki has really good facial expressions. He's good at that side of sort of acting. He's not the best promo, but I think in terms of his body language, he's really good, and I think we can put him over as a badass here, the way he pulls himself up back to the ring. Despite that brutal attack, he is ready to fight, and Jerry Lynn sells this, looking concerned, looking afraid to have woken the Warrior, but the commentators point out that he has a huge advantage due to the fact that he attacked his opponent pre-match. That main event gets a 66C+. I'm really happy to see that. Jerry Lynn actually doing better than Low-Ki. Low-Ki off his game. It's disappointing how inconsistent some of our guys are, but I suppose it's something we're going to have to deal with. Hopefully that match at One Night Only will bring more out of him. Low-Ki fighting from underneath, of course Jerry Lynn taking control of much of the match because of Low-Ki's injuries sustained before it, but Key fights back, shows a lot of determination and fire, and the match is just to try and continue to get him over as a face. Of course, he had a long time in the Hustle where he was basically the most hated heel in the company along with Homicide, so we really do need to sort of do a lot to get him over, and I'm hoping that the way he's been booked in the last 3 months kind of lets us gloss over the fact that he was such a dastardly heel for the first year of this save. Low-Ki picks up the victory it with a Warrior's Way. A brilliant victory for him that confirms that he will face Rhino at one night only for the ECW World Championship. Speaking of that man, as a fatigued and hurt Low-Ki has his arm raised in the ring, Rhino is quickly out looking to finish the job that Jerry Lynn was unable to complete. Rhino looked to catch Low-Ki off guard, but as he did last week, he showed that incredible agility and athleticism despite being in a long match by jumping over the gore that seemed to come from out of nowhere. Low-Ki couldn't avoid a second attempt as Rhino immediately turned round and charged towards him, taking him down with a gore. The man he will face at one night only was left laying in the ring, and that would have been enough to keep him down in the match between the two. The question, as Rhino stood tall to end the show, was whether Low-Ki would be able to avoid that move completely when he is fresh and prepared at one night only. So the entire show really is about getting Low-Ki over as a top face. It's a 62C there, so only just above that threshold, but as I was saying, we're just trying to get Low-Ki over. I think he can be a brilliant sort of badass. He's only small, but he carries himself really well, and I see him as part of our main event going forward, and I think this is the perfect rivalry to do that. I'd love to put the title on Low-Ki one day. Whether it'll be one night only, I'm not sure he's ready yet, but we do need somebody to topple Rhino, and Low-Ki is putting in decent performances, and hopefully he can reach a level where it is feasible that he could be the next champion of ECW. Hopefully the way he's been booked in the last few months does that. And the TV rating does play into the favour of the idea that Low-Ki getting a push. Him in the main event with Jerry Lynn gets us over 2 million viewers again, and I do think that is our best rating. I think that does beat out the previous week. Low-Ki there proving himself that he can be a draw, whether that's due to the company growing, and regardless of who's involved, we'd be getting better ratings. It's still good to see that Low-Ki can hold his own in terms of in-ring ratings, getting a 66 main event. That's always going to be good enough for ECW on FX, and the fact that in terms of drawing power, he is showing that people aren't going to not watch the show just because he's in the main event. I think he's been built up really well. He is probably the biggest focus, with CM Punk off in his personal rivalry, not so much a competitive rivalry with Steve Corino, and with Rob Van Dam out injured in terms of storyline. Dreamer not connecting with the fans in William Regal's opinion. I'd probably disagree with that considering it's ECW. Low-Ki getting praise from Nigel McGuinness. That is what we want to see. More praise from Lance Storm. This push of Low-Ki is going so well, and I'm really enjoying seeing that the veterans, or even Nigel McGuinness, one of his peers, praising him, putting him over. Low-Ki is the future of this company. I'm going to throw it out there. CM Punk is on his way out within the next 6 months, and Low-Ki is the perfect person within our current roster to take that position. Of course, we've also got Teddy Hart and Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness, who are showing great potential, but Low-Ki is somebody who I think has a good long-term story in ECW. The start with the hustle, the turn on Homicide, the fact that he's been through a lot, he's been protected throughout his run, and I do see him as one of the future figureheads of this company.